The emergency transmission tore through space like a scream of pure terror, reaching the Galactic Council chambers on distant Nexus Prime. The holographic projector flickered to life, revealing the broken form of Ambassador Kelix, his usually pristine blue skin now scarred and blackened with burns. Behind him, the once beautiful crystal cities of Zephyr burned against a crimson sky. Council members, Kelix gasped, his forearms trembling as he clutched a damaged data pad. The Devourers have returned from the void. 3 of our outer colonies are gone. Not destroyed, consumed. Every atom, every molecule converted into their biomass. His voice cracked. Our defense fleets engaged them near the Spiral Nebula. 40,000 ships, Council Leader Thane. The pride of 6 civilizations. They lasted 17 minutes. In the Great Chamber, representatives from dozens of species sat in stunned silence. The tall Greys with their massive black eyes, the crystalline Vorthan who communicated through light patterns, the floating jellyfish-like Medusans, all frozen in horror. For 3,000 years, the Devourers had been nothing more than a nightmare from ancient history, sleeping in the deep void between galaxies. Council Leader Thane's 12 tentacles writhed in agitation, each one tipped with sensory nodes that could detect fear across vast distances. Right now, those nodes were screaming warnings as terror flooded the chamber. The ancient slug-like being had lived through the last Devourer War, barely surviving as a young spawn when his homeworld was stripped bare. How many ships? Thane's voice echoed through the chamber's translation matrices, reaching each species in their native tongue. We estimate 2 million bioships in the first wave alone, Kelix whispered. And they're growing. Every planet they consume adds to their numbers. Our scientists detect massive construction activity in the void. They're building something enormous. Something we've never seen before. The chamber erupted in panicked clicks, chirps, and harmonic frequencies as representatives demanded answers. How had the Devourers awakened? Why now? How long before they reached the inner systems where billions of peaceful beings lived their quiet lives? Counselor Vex, a spider-like creature from the Hive worlds, raised 6 legs for attention. What of the Titan fleet? The combined armadas of the core systems. Kelix's image flickered as his transmission weakened. Gone. The Devourers don't just destroy ships, they convert them. Our own vessels turned against us, rebuilt with that horrible organic technology. They learn from everything they consume. He paused, looking directly at Thane. Council Leader, there is only one option left. The one we swore never to consider. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Every being present knew what Kelix meant. In the restricted archives, buried under centuries of classified files, lay records of a species so dangerous that the entire galaxy had agreed to quarantine them. A species that had taken their first steps into space not with ships of exploration, but with weapons designed to crack planets. You cannot be serious, hissed Counselor Zaith, her serpentine form coiling in distress. The humans are barbarians. Deathworlders. They were exiled for good reason. They destroyed 3 galactic peacekeeping stations during first contact, added Counselor Brix, his metallic shell reflecting the chamber's dim lighting. Their own planet tried to kill them for millions of years and they fought back. They fight everything, their weather, their animals, even each other. Thane's ancient eyes closed as memories flooded back. The first human ship to reach galactic space had been a crude metal cylinder powered by controlled explosions. When peaceful contact was attempted, the humans had somehow interpreted it as an attack and responded with weapons that violated 12 different treaties on civilized warfare. They used radiation as a weapon. Radiation. Send the message, Thane commanded, his voice heavy with the weight of 3 millennia. Wake the Deathworlders. 50 light-years away, beyond the quarantine barrier that had isolated the Sol system for half a century, Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the command bridge of the human dreadnought Titan's Wrath. The massive ship stretched for 5 kilometers, its hull scarred by decades of testing against Earth's most violent storms. Through the reinforced viewports, he could see the rest of humanity's first fleet, 200 warships that had never been seen by alien eyes. Sir, called Lieutenant Beth Williams from the communication station, her voice tight with excitement. The quarantine beacon just went dark. We're receiving an unencrypted transmission on all frequencies. Morrison's weathered face, marked by radiation scars from his years serving on solar patrol, remained impassive. At 62 he had spent most of his life preparing for this moment. Earth's children had not been idle during their exile. Put it through, Lieutenant. The message was brief, transmitted in the mathematical language that humans had learned from their first contact decades ago. As Morrison listened, a slow smile spread across his face, not pleasant, but the smile of a predator recognizing prey. "They're asking for help, sir," Williams reported, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Something called the Devourers has awakened. The Galactic Council's fleets are destroyed." Morrison turned to face his bridge crew, men and women who had trained their entire lives for war among the stars. Behind them, through the ship's corridors, 15,000 Marines and naval personnel waited for orders. In the cargo bays, weapons and equipment designed to function in the harshest environments in known space lay ready for deployment. "Signal the fleet, Lieutenant," Morrison said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the galaxy's most dangerous food chain. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the exile is over." He paused, looking out at the stars that had been forbidden to humanity for so long. "It's time to show the galaxy what humans learned in exile." The Titan's wrath began to move, followed by the largest fleet of human warships ever assembled. Behind them, the Sol System's defenses powered down for the first time in 50 years. Ahead lay a galaxy that had forgotten why humanity had been feared. They were about to remember. The fabric of space-time tore open like a wound as the human armada burst from hyperspace, their emergence sending shockwaves through the void. 200 warships materialized in perfect formation, each one a masterpiece of desperate engineering born from 50 years of isolation. The lead vessels were massive dreadnoughts, their hulls black as midnight and bristling with weapon systems that no alien had ever seen before. Captain Tom Bradley gripped the command rail of the heavy cruiser Stormbreaker as reality settled around them. Through the reinforced viewports, he watched distant alien cargo ships panic at the sight of human vessels, their pilots screaming emergency codes across every frequency. Some ships simply shut down their engines and drifted, hoping to avoid notice. Others fired up their drives so hard they risked burning out their power cores in desperate attempts to flee. "Sir, we're picking up over 300 alien vessels in this sector alone," reported Lieutenant Diana Hayes from the sensor station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed the tactical situation. "Most of them are heading for the nearest jump gates at maximum burn." Commander Robert Wright leaned over the tactical display, his scarred face illuminated by the blue glow of the sensors. He had lost an eye during the Titan Storm training exercises, where human crews practiced combat maneuvers inside Jupiter's radiation belt. "They're broadcasting on emergency channels, Captain. Universal panic signals. Some of them are requesting Galactic Council protection from us." Bradley almost smiled at that. The same Galactic Council that had begged for their help was now being asked to protect ships from the very fleet they had summoned. He remembered the day of exile perfectly, standing in the dock of Station Harmony as Ambassador Velen read the charges against humanity. Too violent. Too unpredictable. A threat to galactic peace. The aliens had no idea what they had unleashed by isolating Earth. While they built their pretty cities and enjoyed their peaceful lives, humanity had turned their quarantine into a fortress. Every asteroid in the Sol System had been mined for resources. Every moon had become a shipyard or training ground. Mars had been terraformed into a military academy where human children learned to fight in conditions that would kill most alien species. "Captain," called Ensign Peter Collins from communications, incoming transmission from Admiral Morrison aboard the Titan's Wrath. The main screen flickered to life, showing the weathered face of Admiral Jack Morrison. Behind him, the bridge of the flagship buzzed with activity as crew members prepared for the coming battle. Morrison's gray eyes held the cold determination of a species that had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," Morrison's voice echoed across the battle net, reaching every human vessel simultaneously. "Form up in battle configuration Omega. Destroyers take point screening positions. Heavy cruisers form the battle line. Dreadnoughts maintain center formation with overlapping fire support." Around the Stormbreaker, the massive human fleet began to move with the precision of a deadly dance. Unlike alien formations that relied on computer coordination, the human ships moved with an organic flow that came from years of training together. Each captain knew their role, each crew had drilled these maneuvers until they could execute them in their sleep. "Tactical update from Fleet Intelligence," Morrison continued, his image steady despite the massive acceleration forces affecting his ship. "The Devourers have consumed 17 star systems in the past 36 hours. Their bioships are adapting faster than anyone predicted. The Galactic Council's remaining fleets are in full retreat." Bradley watched his crew absorb this information. Unlike alien crews who might panic at such odds, his people simply checked their weapons and prepared their stations. Humans had learned long ago that the universe was trying to kill them. This was just another Tuesday. Navigation, plot course for the Zephyrian system, Morrison ordered. Maximum burn on all drives. The Devourers think they're apex predators because they've never faced real competition. His smile was sharp as a blade, the expression of a species that had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain by being more dangerous than everything else on the planet. Time to show them what real predators look like. The human fleet engaged their drives, accelerating at rates that would crush most alien physiologies. Human crews, adapted to Earth's heavy gravity and trained in high-G maneuvers, barely noticed the crushing forces. The Stormbreaker led her squadron through a series of combat turns that would have torn apart alien vessels, their crews laughing as they pushed their ships to the very edge of structural failure. As they approached jump distance, long-range sensors began detecting the first signs of Devourer activity. Entire solar systems showed the characteristic energy signatures of mass conversion, worlds being stripped atom by atom and transformed into something else. Something hungry. "Sir," reported Wright, studying the tactical displays with the calm focus of a born warrior, "we're getting our first look at Devourer bioships. They're bigger than anything in our database. Some of them register as large as small moons." Bradley nodded grimly. Earth had prepared them for this. Every simulation, every war game, every brutal training exercise had been designed around one simple truth. When humanity finally returned to the stars, they would face enemies that viewed them as nothing more than food. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying with them 50 years of accumulated rage and the finest military technology that desperate genius could produce. Behind them, alien vessels began broadcasting warnings across the galaxy. The Deathworlders were awake and they were going to war. In the depths of space, something ancient and hungry stirred, detecting the approach of new prey. The Devourers had consumed countless civilizations across the eons, but they had never encountered anything quite like what was coming for them. They were about to learn why Earth's children called themselves the apex predators of the galaxy. The human fleet tore through hyperspace and emerged into hell itself. The Zephyrian system, once home to 12 billion peaceful beings, had become a feeding ground for nightmares. Where beautiful crystal cities had once floated in the void, massive biomechanical constructs now pulsed with alien life. Each one was the size of Earth's moon, their surfaces covered in writhing tentacles that stretched out like hungry fingers to strip mine entire planets. "Mother of God," whispered Gunnery Sergeant David Kane from his position at the weapons console aboard the heavy cruiser Thunderstrike. His scarred hands moved automatically across the targeting systems as his brain tried to process what the sensors were showing. "Sir, I'm counting over 15,000 Devourer vessels in this system alone." The smaller Devourer ships moved through space like a swarm of metallic locusts, each one roughly the size of a human destroyer but twisted into organic shapes that hurt to look at. Their hulls rippled with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in hypnotic rhythms, ancient hunting displays designed to paralyze prey with fear. Streams of smaller craft, no bigger than fighters but moving with insect-like coordination, flowed between the larger vessels like blood through alien veins. Captain Helen Brooks, commanding the battle cruiser Stormbringer, watched through reinforced viewports as one of the moon-sized constructs began consuming what had once been Zephyr Prime. The planet's surface peeled away in massive chunks, each piece dissolving into gray sludge that was then absorbed into the creature's body. "They're not just destroying the planets," she reported over the battle net. "They're eating them, converting every atom into biomass." In the distance, the few surviving ships of the Galactic Council fleet limped away from the carnage. A massive Vorthan crystal ship, its beautiful geometric hull cracked and bleeding light, spun helplessly as smaller Devourer craft swarmed around it like sharks sensing blood. Other alien vessels simply drifted dead in space, their crews either consumed or fled in escape pods that would never reach safety in time. The moment the human fleet appeared, every Devourer in the system turned toward them with the unified motion of a single predator detecting fresh meat. The biomechanical constructs shifted their feeding tentacles away from the dying planets, while thousands of smaller ships began forming attack formations that flowed like living fluid through the void. "Contact," reported Lieutenant Ben Foster from the sensor station of the flagship Titan's Wrath. "All Devourer ships are changing course to intercept. They're abandoning their feeding operations to come after us." Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge, his weathered face calm as he studied the tactical displays. 50 years of preparation had led to this moment. Every weapon system, every tactical doctrine, every training exercise had been designed around one simple principle. When humanity returned to the stars, they would face enemies that had never encountered real resistance. "All ships, battle stations," Morrison commanded, his voice carrying across the fleet's communication network. "Remember your training. These things have been sleeping for 3,000 years while we learn to fight in the harshest environment in the known galaxy. Fire at will." The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Plasma cannons, originally designed to function during solar flares, sent streams of superheated matter across the void at near-light speed. Kinetic bombardment systems that had been tested against asteroid impacts launched tungsten rods that could punch through solid rock. Electromagnetic pulse arrays, modeled after Earth's lightning storms, sent cascading waves of energy that fried biomechanical systems. The first wave of Devourer ships died in brilliant explosions that lit up the system like new stars. Their biohulls, evolved to resist conventional energy weapons, simply melted under the focused fury of human plasma fire. Smaller craft were torn apart by kinetic rounds that hit with the force of nuclear weapons. "Direct hit on target Cluster 7, reported Weapons Officer Janet Mills aboard the destroyer Iron Wolf. Her ship danced through the enemy formations with the agility of a fighter, its twin plasma cannons carving through Devourer vessels like a hot knife through butter. "Enemy ships are breaking up. Whatever those hulls are made of, they can't handle our heat." Captain Rachel Parker, commanding the Iron Wolf, grinned fiercely as her ship tore through enemy formations. The destroyer's engines, designed to operate in the radiation fields around Jupiter, barely strained under the massive acceleration forces as they executed combat maneuvers that would have killed alien crews. "Welcome to Terra's gift to the galaxy, you ugly bastards." But for every Devourer ship that died, 10 more seemed to take its place. The massive bioconstructs began launching clouds of smaller vessels. Not ships, but actual living creatures that flew through space on wings of crystallized flesh. These biofighters moved with insect-like coordination, swarming toward human vessels and formations that shifted and flowed like schools of deadly fish. "Sir," called Commander Paul Wright from aboard the cruiser Storm Chaser, "the big ones are starting to move. The moon-sized constructs are heading our way." Through the chaos of battle, the true horror of the Devourer swarm became clear. This wasn't just a military force, it was an entire ecosystem designed for one purpose: consumption. Every ship, every construct, every biofighter was part of a single organism that had spent millennia perfecting the art of converting matter into more of itself. "Tactical analysis complete," reported the fleet's AI systems. "Enemy vessels show adaptive capabilities. They're already modifying their hull configurations to better resist our plasma fire." Morrison nodded grimly. The Devourers were learning just as the reports had warned. But they had one critical weakness: they had never faced an enemy that learned faster. "All ships switch to kinetic bombardment," he ordered. "Let's see how they adapt to physics itself." The human fleet began its deadly work, each ship a testament to 50 years of desperate preparation. They had come to save a galaxy that had exiled them, but they would do it on their own terms. The real battle was just beginning. The battle had been raging for 6 brutal hours, and space around the dying Zephyrian system burned with the wreckage of 1,000 ships. Human vessels, scarred but unbroken, continued their deadly dance through clouds of debris that would have torn apart any other fleet. Their hulls, forged in Earth's most violent storms and tested against solar radiation, absorbed punishment that left alien observers speechless. The heavy cruiser Thunderstorm had taken a direct hit from one of the massive bioconstructs, a lance of concentrated acid that ate through her main power conduits like liquid fire. Most ships would have been dead in space, crew evacuated to lifeboats. Instead, Captain Ben Foster's voice crackled across the ship's internal comm system with orders that would have been suicide for any other species. "All hands, radiation protocols now," Foster commanded as emergency lighting bathed the bridge in red. "Engineering teams, get those suits on and get down to the reactor core. We're going manual." Within minutes, human crew members were crawling through sections of the ship where radiation levels would cook alien nervous systems in seconds. Chief Engineer Patricia Moore, her radiation suit's warning lights flashing constantly, manually realigned the plasma conduits while her team rerouted power through backup systems that had never been designed for combat use. "Power restored to forward weapons," Moore reported, her voice steady despite working in an environment that registered deadly on every sensor. "We're running hot, but we're running." The Thunderstorm rejoined the battle line, her plasma cannons roaring back to life just as a swarm of biofighters dove toward the human formation. Each blast from her weapons carved through the enemy craft like they were made of paper, their exotic matter hulls no match for weapons designed to function in the heart of solar storms. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out on dozens of human ships. When the destroyer Lightning Strike lost atmospheric pressure, Her crew simply sealed their helmets and continued fighting in hard vacuum. When the battlecruiser Iron Thunder took damage to her navigation systems, her helmsman used visual sighting and manual calculations to thread the massive ship through asteroid fields that would have stopped any automated system. "Admiral," called Commander Anna Hayes from her position at the tactical station aboard the flagship Titan's Wrath. Her console showed the strategic situation across the entire system, a three-dimensional map of destruction that updated in real time. "Devourer main fleet is converging on our position from multiple vectors. Count is now over 20,000 vessels and climbing. They're adapting faster than our projections indicated." The tactical display showed the true scope of the trap closing around them. Massive bioconstructs, each one a living shipyard, were spawning new vessels every few minutes. The smaller Devourer ships moved with hive-mind coordination, forming complex patterns that boxed the human fleet into an increasingly tight space. Behind them, the moon-sized feeding constructs had abandoned their planetary consumption and were moving to join the attack. Admiral Morrison studied the holographic battlefield, his mind processing tactical information at lightning speed. 50 years of war games, simulations, and theoretical battles had prepared him for this moment. The Devourers fought like every other apex predator in galactic history. They surrounded their prey, overwhelmed them with numbers and consumed the remains. But they had one critical weakness: they had never faced prey that thrived in environments that killed everything else. "Navigation," Morrison commanded, his voice carrying across the bridge with the calm authority of a man who had spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. "Plot course for the stellar corona. All ships, prepare for combat acceleration toward the primary star." The bridge crew exchanged glances that mixed excitement with grim determination. They had trained for this maneuver countless times in the Sol system, using Earth's own sun as a training ground. But this would be the first time they had executed it under actual combat conditions. "Sir," questioned Lieutenant Ted Walsh from the navigation station, "are you sure about this? The radiation levels near that star are off the charts. Even our shielding has limits." Morrison's smile was sharp as a blade. "Lieutenant, what do you think we've been preparing for all these years? Set course for the corona." The communication channels erupted with responses from across the human fleet as captains received their orders. Most were expressions of fierce joy. Finally, a chance to fight in conditions where their superior training and equipment would give them every advantage. "Finally, a proper fight in proper conditions," laughed Lieutenant Colonel James Miller, commanding the Marine assault ship Reaper. His vessel, designed to deploy troops in the worst environments imaginable, had been itching for a chance to show what human Marines could do when the playing field was leveled. Boys and girls were going home. The human fleet began what appeared to be a fighting retreat toward the system's dying red giant star. Their movements were carefully calculated to look desperate, ships breaking formation, some vessels appearing to limp as they accelerated toward what any sane species would consider certain death. The Devourer swarm took the bait immediately. Sensing wounded prey fleeing toward a natural trap, they abandoned their careful encirclement and began an all-out pursuit. Bioships that had evolved in the cold depths of intergalactic space pushed their organic systems to maximum speed, eager to finish off the stubborn humans before they could escape into hyperspace. What the Devourers didn't understand was that humans had never learned to run from hostile environments. They had learned to weaponize them. As the chase began in earnest, Admiral Morrison allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The ancient enemy was about to learn why Earth's children called their homeworld a death world, and why that had made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The real battle was about to begin in the embrace of a dying star. The human fleet dove into the roiling plasma of the stellar corona like swimmers entering their natural element. Around them, the dying red giant's outer atmosphere churned with temperatures that reached 15 million degrees, while radiation levels spiked beyond anything most species could even measure. This was the kind of environment that had forged humanity, violent, unpredictable, and absolutely lethal to anything not born in Earth's crucible. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Titan's Wrath as his ship plunged deeper into the star's embrace. Through the reinforced viewports, he could see plasma storms that stretched for millions of kilometers, each one containing more energy than most civilizations used in a century. The bridge crew worked calmly at their stations, their movements sure and confident. This was what they had trained for their entire lives. "Hull temperature rising to acceptable combat levels," reported Chief Engineer Kyle Thompson, monitoring systems that would have been screaming overload warnings on any alien vessel. "Plasma collectors are online and feeding additional power to all weapon systems. We're running hotter than we ever have, sir." Behind them, the Devourer swarm followed eagerly, thinking they had cornered their prey in a stellar death trap. The biomechanical ships that had terrorized the galaxy for eons pushed deeper into the corona, their organic systems already beginning to break down under the intense radiation. But their hunger drove them forward. They could sense the human fleet just ahead, and nothing had ever escaped them before. "Contact," called Lieutenant Diana Foster from the sensor station. "Devourer main force is entering the corona now." "Countess." "Jesus, sir, there's got to be 30,000 ships following us in." The tactical displays showed the true scope of what was happening. The entire Devourer swarm, abandoning all caution, had pursued the human fleet into the star's outer layers. Bioships that had evolved in the cold depths of space were now surrounded by plasma hot enough to strip atoms apart, while radiation levels climbed beyond anything in their evolutionary experience. "All ships, this is it," Morrison announced across the fleet communication network. "Weapons free. Show them what Earth's children learned in the fire." The human fleet turned to fight in an environment that would have been instantly fatal to any other species in the galaxy. The heavy battleships Storm Lord and Thunder King opened up with their main plasma cannons, but instead of drawing power from their reactors, they began feeding directly from the star itself. Magnetic field generators, originally designed to protect Earth's orbital stations from solar flares, now channeled streams of stellar plasma into weapons that hit with the force of miniature suns. "Direct hit on target cluster Alpha," reported Gunnery Sergeant Victoria Kane from aboard the cruiser Lightning Fist. "Enemy bioships are breaking apart. Their organic hulls can't handle the heat we're throwing at them." Across the battlefield, Devourer vessels began dying in ways their species had never experienced. Ships that had survived for millennia in the cold vacuum of space simply melted as human weapons channeled stellar fury directly into their hulls. Biomechanical systems that could adapt to most forms of attack found themselves facing temperatures and radiation levels that exceeded their biological limits. The smaller Devourer craft fared even worse. Swarms of biofighters that moved like living insects through normal space became confused and sluggish as the intense radiation interfered with their nervous systems. Human pilots, protected by radiation shielding that had been tested in Earth's Van Allen belts, tore through the enemy formations with plasma fire that used the star's own atmosphere as ammunition. "Boarding craft incoming," announced Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Miller from the Marine assault ship Reaper. "Multiple Devourer bioconstructs are trying to attach to our hull." What followed would have been impossible for any other species in known space. Human Marines, wearing powered armor designed for the worst environments Earth could produce, fought hand-to-hand battles in hard vacuum while surrounded by plasma hot enough to vaporize most materials. Marine Colonel William Cross led the defense of the Reaper's hull, using his bare hands to tear apart biomechanical attackers that couldn't function in the hostile environment. "These things are falling apart in the heat," Cross reported over the combat channel as he ripped the head off a Devourer boarding construct. "Their biotech can't handle what we call Tuesday morning on Earth." The battle raged for only minutes, but those minutes rewrote the history of galactic warfare. Human ships that had been designed to operate during solar storms and magnetic field reversals found themselves perfectly adapted to combat in stellar plasma. They moved through the corona like predators in their natural habitat, while the ancient terror of the galaxy burned around them. "Enemy fleet is breaking up," reported Commander Robert Hayes from the tactical station. "Mass system failures across all Devourer vessels. They're dying by the thousands." Through the chaos, Admiral Morrison watched as 30,000 years of Devourer evolution met 50 years of human desperation and ingenuity. It wasn't even close to a fair fight. The bioships that had consumed countless civilizations simply couldn't survive in an environment where humans thrived. As the last Devourer vessels died in stellar fire, the human fleet began its emergence from the corona. Their hulls glowed with heat that would have melted alien metals, but their systems functioned perfectly. They had done more than win a battle. They had announced to the galaxy that Earth's children were home. "Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council," announced Lieutenant Beth Clark. "It's Ambassador Kellex." The alien's voice crackled across the communication array, filled with awe and disbelief. "Human fleet, how did you survive in there? No organic life can function in those conditions." Admiral Morrison's reply would echo across the galaxy for generations to come, carried by every news network and repeated in every alien language. "Ambassador, we're from Earth. That wasn't hostile, that was home." The Galactic Council's formal apology came within hours, along with an invitation for humanity to join as protectors of civilized space. But deep in the Sol system, construction continued on fleets that dwarfed even this armada. Earth's children had tasted victory among the stars, and they had learned that the galaxy held threats even darker than the Devourers. Humanity would be ready. D&D.